So if you need to use your computer, please use it. And when you come up to ask a question, you're going to walk up to Mrs. Nicole on the screen. Don't waste a lot of time. It's 1 hour to do this. You need to get up and get up. In order to begin reading prayer, you don't have to stand up and so let's begin. Heather McCall, how are you?
Good, how are you?
I'm great. I'm the principal on a minute ago. We're so happy to have you. Thank you. We're going to begin with a prayer. Okay, girls. To welcome all people with love and warmth. Give us patience, give us endurance, give us fortitude. Keep us healthy, keep us rested, and full of joy from beginning to end. Amen. St. Joseph, pray for us. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Mrs. Hughes is here. She's our guidance counselor, and Mrs. Kershaw, who is our vice principal. We welcome all of you here today. Girls, this is the answer to a prayer for me, because I've wanted to do this for a very long time. And I'm glad that you have your teachers as role models. We have some guests back there, special volunteers and people that help us here. We have our lunch ladies, we have our office staff, we have our moms up here. You have so many role models. And we have a very the lone wolf there, the poor man that had to come and be with us today. But he volunteered to put up with all of this today, so we're happy about that. And he's, you know Mr. Hollingsworth, he's a great asset to our school. And I'll let Mrs. Hughes take over now because we're going to try to get started.
Okay, everybody, I'm happy to introduce Miss Heather McCall. She's a professional counselor, and she has her own practice. It's called Symmetry of Self, and she is also a military veteran. So we want to welcome her here for International Women's Day, and thank you so much for being here with us, Ms. McCall. So if you could just tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do, and then we have...
Honestly, it's a little bit hard to hear, but I just want to say Happy International Women's Day, and thank you so much for inviting me. I'm happy to be here and talk to you about what I do. I am a licensed professional counselor. I own a small private practice in West Deptford, and I focus mainly on working with veterans and first responders, adults who are working through childhood traumas and sexual assault, and also grief counseling. I started the field of mental health because I was a military veteran for about 5 years. I served in the United States Navy as what they call a Master at Arms, which is law enforcement and anti-terrorism force protection. And when I got out, it was a little bit hard to adjust to civilian life again, and so I realized that if it was hard for me, it was probably hard for other veterans who had heavier experiences, and so I really wanted to do something important to help reach out and be of support to my fellow veterans to help them through their process, and so
We lost your sound for a second. Can you hear us?
yes.
There we go. We're back. No problem.
Okay.
Are you ready for some students to ask questions?
Yeah, that would be great.
Awesome. First question. Katie. Yep.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning.
So as a counselor, what motivates you to do what you do?
Probably a lot of things. With people through the many things that they're experiencing, because there's the part of me that understands what it's like to go through difficult experiences and not have a lot of support and not know where to go, and so that's the biggest thing. But also I find people fascinating. I like listening to people and trying to understand them and their perspectives, and I like being the person who has the tools to give someone who's going through a hard time so that they can succeed and become happier in their lives. So hope that answered your question.
Thank you.
Welcome to the so while you're doing that. Mr. McCall, maybe you can fill us in a little bit. Come on, Marissa, you're next. I go first. Fill us in a little bit about your experiences in the military and how maybe it was different for you as a woman rather than what a man would experience.
Hold on 1 second.
Sure.
Yeah.
Good morning, I'm Marissa. What is your advice to young girls that see themselves enlisting after high school?
All right, Mrs. Hughes is going to repeat the question.
So the question was
Yeah, I think it's hard after high school. I actually joined when I was 26, so I thought that would be enough experience to get me I got out, but honestly it's hard no matter what you do. I think when you go in after high school, just know that you're up against a lot, and there's still a lot of problems in the military in terms of equality, racism, sexism. So it is hard to be a woman, and you have a lot to contest with, and I feel like we have a lot to prove. But my advice would be that you just stay true to yourself, because it's easy to get caught up in trying to prove that you're just as capable and just as good at your job, but we don't want to lose our values either. But knowing that it's going to be hard, but that you can do it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Are there programs in the military right now to educate the men as to this maybe sexist attitude?
I'm sorry, I can't hear what you're saying.
Are there programs in the military right now to educate these young men about the sexism that exists there now?
Yeah, a conversation that's going on, and I think that there's still so much work to do. The military likes to educate are important for things like sexual harassment and sexual assault. I feel like they just don't really cover what needs to be covered. They don't really stress the need for support, and unfortunately that's part of what drives me to do what I do, is because sometimes people get caught in the aftermath of on both sides, not really knowing how to navigate relationships with the other sex in this kind of situation, while also having been on the receiving end of that. There's just really not a whole lot of support, but I do think the conversation is getting better. These trainings are, we call them death by PowerPoint because they're so boring, but
They know about that.
it really can't just be this image on a screen that we have to read through because we're told to. It really has to be an in-person conversation. We need people to share their experiences. We need to normalize these things. So that's part of why my services range the way that they do, because military sexual assault is a huge issue, and also the grief of having lost yourself in that process. So there are some programs, like in the Navy we have something called SAVI, which is the sexual assault kind of intervention program, where colleagues can, they're like on call, so if something happens to you, you call that person on the phone and they come and they sort of help you through the process of what you need to do to report and all these things. But a lot of these instances go unreported, and it's sad and disheartening. But I do think the more that we advocate for these things, the better it will get.
Can I just follow?
I do think that because, I'm sorry.
That's all right.
In the news, obviously in the past year or so, there has been more publicity around these things, and so I think that conversation is going to change in a big way.
Can I just follow up and say, let's not talk about sexual assault only. How about the very subtle ways that sexism is shown to women? For instance, in the news right now, we have a governor who is accused of showing sexism or not harassing women. Not outright that somebody would see it with a sexual assault, but by the way they touch a woman, or the way they get close to a woman, or that they don't address a woman. The girls and I were just talking about this, how lots of times we will address a man with his title, like Mr. someone, but a man will come up to you and call you hon or by your first name, and they don't even know you. Is that one of the things has that happened to you while you were in the military?
I have not had the experience of being talked to that way, but I definitely have been treated differently because definitely expectations of me that were different than my male counterparts. I definitely, at one point, was told by a superior that he didn't want to know that somebody was sort of treating me differently. So you do run into those things often, but I think that is getting better too as it gets more normal for women to be in some of these positions. I mean, it wasn't too long ago where women weren't allowed in combat situations and are there all the time now. So I think the more it's normalized that our presence is there and we're showing that we can do it, the more that kind of behavior stops. And when it really comes down to it, when you're actually in a situation, in the military where you're fighting a threat or something like that, a lot of that stuff goes to the side because, you're in this together and there is a camaraderie that's there as well. So.
Thank you. Bella? You can pull your mask down if you need to.
Hi, my name is Bella, and my question is, what made you decide to join the military?
Yeah, that's a good question. Like I said, I joined when I was 20, and straight out of high school, I actually had a bachelor's degree, and I wasn't really doing much with my life. I needed some discipline. I needed some tools. I needed to feel good about myself. And the Navy actually, aside from some of the internal problems with gender and things like that, it actually gave me a lot of confidence in myself, and that's really what I needed to see what I was made of. So it really was one of the best decisions I've ever made for my life. It really helped me a lot. But something had to change, and I wasn't sure of that.
So what were you doing before you went into the military?
Yeah, not much. I had various jobs, but the last one I had before I joined, I was a legal secretary. It was not paying my bills, so I was kind of stuck. I wasn't able to use my bachelor's the way that I wanted to, so it was, I always wanted to. It's kind of in my family. My grandfather was a World War II vet. My other grandfather was a Vietnam vet, or Korea vet, sorry. So it always appealed to me. I just didn't know that I could do it. And then one day, I just bit the bullet.
Sorry, last question. Did you get your education in the military?
I did not. I got a bachelor's prior to I probably graduated 4 years before I joined, and then master's with my GI Bill when I got out. So the military paid for it, but I didn't do much education when I was in it.
Okay, thank you, and thank you for your service.
Thank you.
Thank you, that was nice.
Brogan?
Hi.
You can hold your mic.
Hi, my name is Brogan, and my question today is, what was your military branch, rank, and job title?
Yeah, so I was in the Navy. I was on arms, which is a fancy term for military police. So I did law enforcement and anti-terrorism force protection. Because I had my bachelor's before I went in, I got in as an E3, which is a seaman. And about 9 months later, I got promoted to E4, which is a petty officer 3rd class. And that's kind of where I hung out for the rest of my enlistment, because in the military, to get promoted, at least in the Navy, people above you have to retire. And in my job specifically, no one was leaving, so it was very hard to advance past that. Of course, when I got out, everybody else got promoted, so it's just how it goes. But.
Are any of you interested in going into the military and field studies? Are any of you interested in law enforcement? Okay. Pretty interesting.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brogan.
Yeah.
Malia?
Hi, my name's Malia. I wanted to ask, what kind of support can we give to a military family, and what are they most in need of?
Great question. I think the biggest answer to that is just being present and asking people how they're doing. I think that's the biggest thing. For people who are actually deployed, sending them little bits of home is important. Most places that people deploy to, there are, stores and things like that where they get things imported, basic things like soap and things like that. But one of the biggest things that people enjoy are just magazines from home or pictures of home, letters from home, little bits of that, because we do get homesick, and mail call is super important. It's good from around. For the families back home, I think just, what can I do? What do you need? Just checking in on people and seeing how they're doing. Because especially right now, when we're all kind of isolated anyway, it's often hard to get in touch with people, and it's nice to know that people care. So yeah, so check.
Okay, thank you.
Is there anything in particular that we could do for, let's say, the children who have parents that are deployed? Or is it a problem with young ladies this age, maybe, that have maybe even a boyfriend, a friend, a mom, a dad deployed? Do you see any difference in the age groups and to what their
Can
needs?
you come closer?
Do you see any difference in the age groups and to what their needs would be? Because I think the girls here are looking to maybe talk to the people who are teenagers or their age groups that have people deployed and what we could do for them.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's important to recognize if there are, sort of look at the signs of whether or not they're acting normal. Are they okay? Because this is really hard to be without a parent or loved one that are deploying. So just really checking in to see if they're okay, how are things at home, is there anything that you need? I think that's pretty much across the board, no matter who it is that that's over there. It helps just to know that someone's thinking of you, and I don't know that the needs of the service member are any different, really, but for people at home, I do think that.
Do you feel that the pandemic has affected this in a more negative way, or no difference?
I mean, I'm sure it does in some ways. We're already feeling isolated. To know that somebody who we love is gone and might be in a serious situation makes it harder. And I feel like because of the pandemic, for most people, their window of tolerance, their ability to have more stress on top it's just reached a breaking point for a lot of people. So I think we keep compiling all these different stresses of remote schooling and not seeing our friends as much and not being able to go places like we used to and just worrying about sickness, and all these things are compounding, and to have somebody who means a lot to you to be deployed to possibly a dangerous place is just one more thing that's just compounding on our stress level and making it harder. I also think when it comes to the service members over there that the mail system obviously has been pretty impacted because a lot of people are trying to get what they need to them.
Thank you.
Macy. We have another question coming up. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
Hi, my name is Macy, and I wanted to ask you, what was the hardest part about returning to civilian life?
Yeah.
Thank you.
The hardest part for me was not really having a purpose. I felt like I didn't have a purpose. When I came home, I had the ability to be on unemployment for a little while, so I was like, oh, this is great. This is going to be like a little vacation since I've been working for 5 years with very minimal time off. And 1 month turned into 2, 2 turned into 3, and then it really started hitting me. I just felt like I didn't have a purpose anymore, that I was having trouble getting out of bed. And I think, a lot of it comes from specifically the work that I did. I was, I spent 2 years in the Middle East, and then I did a couple years in Japan, and I was always needed. I was always responding to something. There was always something important going on, and I was a part of that. And to come home and to have kind of nothing going on, that was the hardest part. So I started a blog. That's kind of how I started edging my way into mental health. I started a blog, started writing about my experiences and how hard this was, and then that seemed to help a lot. And then I started looking for jobs. I was applying all over the place, all different stuff, and I ended up getting a job answering phones at a therapy practice. And that's kind of how it all started, because I really wanted to go back to school and use my GI Bill. I didn't know what I wanted to do. And one of the therapists at the practice said, you should do this. And I kind of laughed at first, seeing as I was just coming out of a depression. And she said, no, I think you'd be good at this. And that's how I climbed out of that, because the purpose now for me is I never want somebody else to feel that way. So now, I'm making it a Yeah. Thank you.
Hi. So we had just talked about the hard parts of adjusting to civilian life, and you felt like you didn't have a purpose. Do you feel this is the most commonly seen as well for all veterans, or do you see a different common theme for others, and do you see any differences in men versus women, or is it about the same?
I think it's different. I think there's always a level of the purpose thing throughout the board, but I think a lot of the adjustment issue is, or for many people, is that they've had traumatic experiences and they don't know how to go back to a place that isn't a war zone. There's a lot of grief in being in the military, and not just from losing people in combat, but also like you're always changing jobs, you're always losing friends, like everything's always in transition, and to come back to a place that's like every day's the same, that's super hard. What else was I going to say? I think there's a level of differentness for everybody, but I think the purpose thing is pretty true, especially even for the combat vets that are suffering from their experiences, right? They're used to being on in that mode and ready to go, and they come back to a place and they don't really know how to do this anymore. And the other thing is that for a lot of vets, and I think this is the number one thing that people will say that they miss about the military, is they miss their friends. We have very intimate relationships with the people that we're working with. There's a camaraderie there that you can't find out here. And so there's a lot of grief behind that, and trying to figure out how to relationship with other people when you're not doing something like facing death together, you know? So there's a lot of difficulties that people might experience coming back.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Brielle?
Hi, my name is Brielle, and my question is, what is your favorite and least favorite part of your job?
What is your favorite and least
My
favorite?
job.
Yes.
Yeah.
I have a lot of favorite parts of my job, but one is I'm always learning. It's like being a perpetual student. There's always new research, there's always new approaches coming out, and there's always new conversations, and I love that, you know, every day I get to learn something new, and that makes it exciting and interesting, and it never is boring. I also really like being the one that everybody kind of confides their secrets in. I like being that safe place where people can tell me the things they can't tell anybody else. I find that to be so sacred to me. So I enjoy being that place for people. What don't I like? I don't like doing my notes. Documentation is the boring part, but it's the necessary part. So I think most therapists would agree that that's not our favorite part of the job, is having to write a lot of clinical notes, but we have to, it's important. So.
Thank you.
I believe in meaning.
Hi, good afternoon. My question for you is a two-part question. And you were talking about, you know, what you liked and what you didn't like. I can imagine being that person that everybody comes to could kind of take a toll on you. But how do you keep work at work and not bring the emotional aspects home? That's part one. Part two is, what strategies do you use to compartmentalize work and home?
Yeah, excellent question. Thank you. So first part is, yes. So I specialize in trauma and grief, which are really heavy topics, and so that was very hard in the pandemic when I was working from home, because transitioning from one room into the next just wasn't enough space for me. So coming back to my office means that I can kind of leave this stuff here and use my commute to sort of decompress. And not that my commute is very long, but I also take very, very good care of myself when I am not in the office, and I have very good boundaries with when I will see people and answer emails or answer phone calls and things like that. Some of my favorite strategies of keeping healthy are, I'm a runner, I love running. Just got myself a brand new treadmill because that's one of my favorite ways to just keep mentally clear and I'm feeling in a good mood and sort of taking care of my mind and my body. But I also use creative arts and things like that to bring some calmness and de-escalate any emotions that might come up. But I wouldn't say I compartmentalize my own stuff. I think it's important that we do look at our own stuff as it comes up, the stress that we're under, and it's been popular in social media for people to be talking about, who takes care of therapists that are taking care of everybody else, and it's a good point. To me personally, I feel like all the best therapists have therapists because everybody's got stuff, and when you hold space for heavy emotions, someone should hold that for you too. I think it's, I like to say that mental health is no different from physical health, so we need to keep on top of it. And so I hope that answers your question.
Yes, that was very good. I really love the point about setting boundaries, because I think that as women, as being nurturers, that setting boundaries of when you're available, when you're not available, can be very hard. Thank you.
It is. Thank you. Yeah, and obviously, if it's an emergency, my clients know how to get in touch with me. But a lot of times I will reassure them that yes, we'll talk about that the next time I see you if it's not an emergency, and let them know, I'm not in the office, so put a pin in that. But I do have pretty good boundaries, and I like to think that some of that comes from being in the military and sort of being more structured about my time.
Hi, my name is Katie. How does this pandemic affect your day-to-day counseling, and do you believe things will ever go back to pre-pandemic?
Oh, I have so much optimism and hope that I hope by the end of the year I'll be able to see people in person again. But since March, I've been doing everything through something like Zoom, and while that is effective in many ways, and I am continuing to help people, it is weird and awkward, and we are missing a lot in not being in person. I do miss people's energies, and I think that they miss, being in the room as well. There is something that gets lost in translation when we can't feel each other's presence in the room. So I'm looking forward to that returning. I do have a lot of hopes that by the end of the year I'll be able to do that with people again. Yeah, but it has been hard to have to do, and there's something emotionally draining about doing telehealth appointments as well. I'm not sure what that is, but all the more reason to make sure that I'm taking care of myself as best I can do when I'm not working.
Thank you.
And we have one last question today from Juliana.
Wonderful.
Hi, I'm Juliana, and my question for today is, what do you find are the greatest challenges with how society is handling mental health?
Whoa. Well, I think, we have to kind of rewrite the way that our culture is wired, because we're very uncomfortable with talking about mental health. We're very uncomfortable with grief. We're very uncomfortable with a lot of these mental health related topics. So I think that we need to change the language and the rhetoric around mental health and try to destigmatize it because everybody's got stuff, and it is okay to see a therapist. I think it's more than okay. I'm a little biased, but I feel like everyone should be in therapy. And not just because there's anything wrong. There doesn't have to be anything wrong. It can just be that, you need another perspective or a sounding board or tools that would make your life easier. So I think the bigger issue here is working to destigmatize it, make it more normal for people.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Mrs. Curcio. So I wanted to thank you for coming today and let you know that, for our Women's Institute, it's really something that we've really been trying to work on all year, is getting our young ladies to see themselves as lifelong leaders and learners, and really kind of build their courage and enthusiasm, and just make them feel like women can really conquer the world. So I was wondering if you had any last advice for our young ladies in terms of just what you think that they are capable of, and what they should think about themselves.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is don't let anybody tell you who you are. Be true to yourself. Don't let anybody tell you that you can't. You get to decide that. One of the best things that I got out of the military was I got to prove to myself what I was really made of. And then I got to make a difference. And I can still do that. And I never let any of my counterparts tell me otherwise. And I never let them tell me where I should be or how to pigeonhole me. That I don't have to be anything other than I am, and neither do you. You get to decide who you want to be every day. So don't let anybody tell you any different, and don't let them tell you how to feel either. So I think, if anything, this is a really exciting time for women. We're hitting glass ceilings and breaking them. We're doing a lot, and it's a really good thing to see. And so, take that and think about how you want to do that yourself, because you can.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for being here with us today. Can we give a round of applause for Mrs. McFall?
Thank you, Mrs. McFall. You've really given us a lot to think about. And I'm going to tell you, I am so confident that I really do have future leaders now, but young women that are going to make a difference in the future. We're very blessed to have role models here with us today, moms and volunteers, office staff, my faculty, my women on the faculty are here today. And these girls have a lot to emulate, and you've just given us another very positive role model. We hope that we will be able to meet you in person, as you say, so as soon as it's possible. But until then, we'll see you on the computer or on the Zoom again. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.